student and the author of the book, Pantukala Srinivas. Let me first start my remarks by congratulating Srinivas on bringing out this book on a subject which will always remain relevant as long as there are media institutions to talk about the political economy of media institutions will always remain relevant. And from what I know, the book is an outcome of his PhD thesis and has worked on it for quite a long time. And so, congratulations, Srinivas. Just a few remarks about the book. I mean, this is the first time I got a physical copy of the book. I just 2 days ago got the PDF and I kind of quickly looked at it. From what I understand, this book, Media Capital, the Political Economy of 24/7 television news in the Telugu states, provides a critical and comprehensive examination of the evolution, the challenges, the social impact of television news media in the erstwhile Andhra Pradesh and broadly in the Telugu speaking states. And the author draws from extensive first-hand experience as a journalist and as an academic to analyze the transformation of Indian news media, focusing on how economic, political, and social forces have shaped the landscape of Telugu television news. The book explores at its core how the 24-hour news format has deeply affected journalistic integrity, often leading to sensationalism, loss of democratic values, and the prioritization of commercial and political interests over public service. The rise of private satellite news channels, accelerated by liberalization, economic policies of the 1990s, marked a shift from the original objectives of television. In India, some of you know that television was meant to achieve certain developmental objectives, meant for education, community development, and so on. And in the 90s, with liberalization, television has been transformed to a fiercely competitive arena, prioritizing ratings and revenues. And that's now reached a peak. I don't have to tell you more about it. The book provides a nice historical overview of the early years of television, including the site experiment, the early years of Doordarshan, the state-controlled television channel, which I don't know how many of you remember days when we used to have only Doordarshan news and nothing else. Yeah. He also discusses key milestones such as the technological upgrades that television underwent in India around the Asian Games in 1980s, the Commonwealth Games, because those important events serve as inflection points in the modernization of Indian media, right? And he discusses that. One of the significant findings of the book is the increasing corporatization and concentration of media ownership, which in the Telugu states is tied up very intricately with powerful caste interests, political interests, and business interests. Yeah, and I think Srinivas does a good job over a couple of chapters to describe all of this. Television channels have increasingly have become tools for political and corporate elites, fostering a climate where news primarily serves the interests of the owners rather than the public. Right? When people in the media talk about freedom of the press, we need to ask whose freedom are they talking about? Is the freedom of the public to receive information freely, or is it the freedom of the owners to continue to make corporate interest, to make capital out of it? Issues such as paid news have become quite prominent in the erstwhile Andhra Pradesh, in the Telugu states. Uh, he also discusses one or two very important reports that came out on paid news in uh, Andhra Pradesh. I think Srinivas Reddy's and Paranjay Guhatakuta's report on paid news there's a good discussion of that. Uh, Increasingly, television news also became a platform for propagating political agendas. In fact, media have always been used to promote political agendas, there's no doubt. But with television, it's become increasingly so. The proliferation of channels has intensified challenges related to sustaining journalistic ethics. Some of us in the media departments, we still have courses on media ethics, journalistic ethics, because we believe that those are important. And many of our students come back from the media sometimes and say, "Sir, I mean, we don't know, all those ethics that we learned, how relevant they are in the field because they operate according to some other values, right?" Uh, the proliferation uh, of channels have, at one level, has led to media diversity and some kind of representation of voice, but ownership patterns still show an oligopoly, where a few media companies control everything. And the media diversity is also very superficial and artificial. I mean, uh, I don't know about you, but at home, uh, on my satellite connection, I can get something like 3 to 400 news channels at any given time, Indian channels, yeah, in every possible language. And on a typical evening, I'm trying to switch channels with my remote, trying to watch something different during the prime time. And believe it or not, every channel, news channel, is pretty much showing the same thing, right? The diversity in the number of outlets is not really getting reflected in the diversity of opinions, diversity of perspectives, and so on. Now, increasingly, news channels also don't want to spend money collecting primary news on the ground. What they have converted them into is talk shows. Right? Every news program has 3 or 4 people who are opposed to each other, and you just provoke them so they, have a go at each other. So there's much more heat than light generated at the end of these shows. And when I talked about lack of diversity, you will also find the talking heads who come on these shows. They are also the same people. When you switch channel from A to B, the same talking head is also gone there. I mean, they are moving around from one studio to the other, spreading their perspective and opinion. Often they don't even change their shirts, so you can recognize them quite well. So, I mean, this is the state of media diversity, uh, which is the situation despite the number of channels that we have today. Right? And Srinivas does well as a media academic to employ the political economy framework to look at the Telugu news channels. It draws on a number of Western theories. Uh, People like Noam Chomsky, that many of you are familiar with, the iconic book called Manufacturing Consent, but also other political economy of communication scholars like Vincent Mosco, Robert McChesney, and others are discussed at length in some of the chapters to analyze how commodification, global capitalism, media policy have shaped the news industry, including in the Telugu states. It strengthens this narrative, this theoretical, analytical, conceptual framework through empirical data. And that's really one of the strengths of the book. And in depth interviews with media professionals, uh, thereby building a bridge between academic theory and industry practice. Srinivas himself has experience of having worked in news channels, but he also interviewed a lot of news professionals for this book. And you'll find that in the book. One of the things that I found, which was nice to see. Some people may think Srinivas is still being naive and idealistic, but towards the end of the book, you'll see, Srinivas is still insisting on the crucial role of journalists as upholders of democracy and public interest, uh, and amid increasing market and political pressures. So a lot of people think, that's too idealistic to believe that journalists can still be upholders of democracy and so on. But what else can you do? If you stand for media pluralism, you stand for media as a tool for democracy, you have no other choice but to hope for the best, right? And if you don't have hope, there's nothing left. So I like the way the book sort of ends optimistically with a bit of hope. Uh, so I don't want to take too much time. I like what Srinivas does in the book. And as I said, it came out of his PhD thesis, which was done some time ago. And when Andhra Pradesh was still a united state, uh, the political economy of a united Andhra Pradesh was somewhat different from where we are today as a separate Telangana. And I think some of the political economy of contemporary Telangana media is still open for investigation. I mean, we have a decade of experience of having a new state, and all kinds of interesting political and commercial interests have developed now in the media. And hopefully, Srinivas will have some time to spare to look at that contemporary Telangana situation. So I'll stop there. When people make you, uh, ask you to preside over a function, it's basically to stop you from talking too long. I'm not going to talk any further, and instead invite some of the eminent people who are here today for the book launch. Let me start with Dr. Purnachandra Rao garu, who is the ex-DGP of the state, to share his remarks